Hi, gang. It's Patrick.
And Adam.
Coming up on today's episode, we get into the Halloween spirit with our Take 2 review of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. As always, we discuss the latest Disney news, and we close out the show with some quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Adam, Shocktober Hummel.
Shocktober!
Exactly.
That's how a radio disc jockey would say it. Welcome to Shocktober!
That's how I think of you, fondly and as a radio DJ.
Thank you. Let me just clear the blood from my throat after doing that.
Yeah, that was aggressive.
Just a gentle sateen blood clearing.
Spit into the napkin.
Patrick Poltergeist Kazuki.
Ooh, spooky. One of the spookier ghosts, I feel. You know?
Do you have a rating system for level of spookiness when it comes to ghosts?
Yeah, it's 1 to boo. Heyo. Someone's had some coffee.
People are already like, pause. I just cannot on a Monday morning. Swipe to the next podcast.
I wasn't here for comedy. I was here for Disney.
Well, you're getting both, folks. Well, you're getting at least one, right?
Yeah, some could argue you're getting neither one. Some could argue you're getting one or the other. Who knows? It's up to your taste level. And ours is very low.
So low. So low.
Han Solo.
Han Solo. Yes, Patrick, how are you doing today?
Today, thank you for specifying. How are you doing this moment in time? Because it changes from minute to minute, Adam. I'm doing well. It's been a weird week. It's been a busy week. But you know what? I've been taking some extra effort to do some sort of physical self-care and mental self-care. I did a meditation class today. I'm feeling good. How about you?
I'm also feeling good, Patrick, and I'll tell you why. I've got competing candle scents in my apartment right now. In this corner, we have We Want's the Redhead from circa 1955.
That's a great one.
And it's one that you gave me as part of my birthday candle set.
I'm such a good friend.
Such a good friend. And in this corner, we have a tobacco and leather candle, which is also giving me some Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. So it's a full aromatic Pirates experience in my apartment right now.
I like it. I wish I was there with those candles.
In my apartment and not on the attraction?
Exactly.
Because I could put Penny in a pirate costume and you could have almost the exact same experience.
Our Instagram would blow up. We would have at least 5 new members.
Penny the pirate. So adorable. Well, hey, we're both doing good. That's good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, everybody, self-care. You got to have some self-care. Light those candles. Take some breaths. It's a bumpy road ahead of us, but we're going to get through it.
We certainly are.
We've got a bit of a Patreon extravaganza to talk about in banter this week. But before we do that, Adam, what do you say we jump into some This Week in Disney History?
I'm always ready to jump into some This Week in Disney History.
Well, that's good because it's always going to happen. I have put it in my rider that I must always talk about it.
That, only green M&Ms, and never, ever white lilies.
Never white lilies, green M&Ms, Coke Zero, and This Week in Disney History. Here we go. So let's start with the youngest one, which happened fairly recently. 3 years ago, Adam, on October 20th, 2017, the movie Coco premiered in Morelia, Mexico at the Morelia International Film Festival. And I believe, Adam, this was the first time a Disney feature-length movie would premiere outside of the United States. So Coco would then be released in the United States on November 2nd, 2017.
Coco,
no, you didn't.
Coco, yes, we did. Coco, Patrick, Coco.
Yes, they did indeed. I love this movie more and more every time I watch it. It is so extraordinarily beautiful.
I agree with you.
Well, fantastic. And I have to say, I'm not an expert, obviously, in Dia de los Muertos, but it follows pretty closely what that celebration is all about. And so it was well received in Mexico as well as the United States.
I am an expert in Dia de los Muertos.
Fantastic. I thought you might be.
And I will say it absolutely follows exactly what that festival celebrates, and I'm here for it.
I like it. I like it. I would love to give my house, or at least a room in my house, sort of a color scheme makeover using colors from Coco.
Colors from Coco by Patrick.
I like it. Trademarked. Put it on a shirt. It's ours now. All right, let's move on to our next This Week in Disney History. 38 years ago, on October 23rd, 1982, a few weeks after Epcot's official opening, the very first nighttime spectacular on the World Showcase Lagoon premiered, called Carnival des Lumières. The show featured fountains, lights, music, and a film projected on giant barges. So because of the projection, you could only view the show from about 3/4 of the World Showcase between Mexico and Canada in World Showcase proper. And the show lasted until the following summer, which was then replaced by a show called A New World Fantasy.
Interesting how Harmonious is kind of going back to that formula, isn't it? There's going to be large barges, there's going to be screens and projections. I love it.
I love it too. My nickname actually is Large Barge, so it fits in well with my life.
Tell 'em Large Barge sent ya.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Only it was Large Marge, right?
It was Large Marge, yeah.
But still, it fits. It fits. Excellent. Wonderful segue there, Adam. Actually, not at all. Not at all. But our next This Week in Disney History, 79 years ago, on October 23rd, 1941, a little movie that could was released called Dumbo. And I think, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure we'll get many of our Tweedledees writing in, but I believe that Dumbo is the only animated main character of a feature-length Disney movie to never speak a word.
Oh, interesting point. Is he? I don't know.
Animated, at least. I mean, you could argue the Shaggy Dog never spoke a word, although he did talk, didn't he? Because he was actually a person.
You're implying that I've seen the Shaggy Dog.
That's fair. That's fair. You've never seen a live action movie in your entire life. Old Yeller never spoke too, but I'm talking about animated movies here.
Old Yeller did yelp, though. He yelped.
Just the once. Just the once. Oh, no.
Who knew this episode was going to be this dark?
I think we all did. I think everyone knew. Well, happy anniversary, Dumbo. I really love that movie. Problematic, a little bit problematic, but in essence, the movie has a good message.
It does, yes. Do you want to mention the live-action remake at all, Patrick?
I don't know what you're talking about. That movie does not exist.
Wow, just completely wiped it from your memory.
Yep, they know what they did. They know what they did.
Yes, but the animated Dumbo is very sweet, very charming, and we have yet to do a take 2 of that, don't we?
It's true. We did review the live-action version, which does not exist, but we have not flew, if you will, into the animated version of Dumbo.
We have not flew. No, we have not flew.
I'm realizing now my grammar is a mess today. It's just a mess, but you know what? I'm sticking with it.
It's not like you're hosting a podcast or anything. Don't worry about it. It makes us folksy and charming.
That's right. If you want to take some advice from our president, words don't matter. Words just don't matter. You can say whatever you want.
You can say whatever the hell ass you want.
Oh, dear. So that was This Week in Disney History, whatever the hell ass we want it to be.
Some really notable historical moments there, Patrick. I'm proud of you for bringing those to our attention.
Listen, I really like doing that archaeological dig into Disney history every week. It's super fun for me.
You are the Sam Neill to our Jurassic Park dig site.
Yes, you can call me Indiana Bones.
Just in that one video on the internet.
I erased that. Along with the live-action Dumbo.
Oddly, same plot structure, though.
It's very similar. Very similar. No one knows what's going on.
Well, Patrick, you teased everyone at the top of the episode, commenting that it was going to be Patreon-centric.
That sounds like a problematic term, but it's fitting, and it's not problematic at all. In fact, it behooves you to become a Patreon member, right, Adam?
It certainly does behoove you. And do you know who it especially behooved last week?
Please tell me, who was behooved?
So behoovy was Jessica.
Jessica, behooved beyond belief.
Jessica was behooved beyond belief. She was so behooved that she decided to become a member of our Patreon fam.
Jessica, I'm going to clap my behooves in your behalf. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Did you know a cloven hoof is a sign of the devil, Patrick?
I did know that.
So the fact that you said you just clapped your hooves gives me pause.
Listen, come to your own conclusion on that one.
We concluded that a long time ago. We know what you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But Jessica, thank you. That is so generous of you. Adam, shall we explain to our non-Patreon Tweedledees what the Patreon page entails?
We absolutely should do that. Do you think people get sick of hearing this? They hear it almost in every single episode.
I think they drink every time we say the word Patreon, and that makes it a fun game.
That is a great idea. So listeners, going forward, we know that you may typically listen to these episodes on a Monday morning, but hey, when is a better time to start drinking than a Monday morning? Am I right, Patrick?
That's what quarantine's all about, my friend. That's what quarantine is all about. It's about safety and drinking on a Monday morning.
So put an extra pull of Bailey's in your coffee right now, and let's play a little game. Patrick, who is going to talk them through the Patreon process, me or you?
Adam, I really had a great time listening to you talk us through that process last time, and I think you could use some more practice, so I'm going to put that upon you again.
You know what? I feel ready this week. I feel more ready than last week. Last week was a bit of a mess, but this week I feel like I am ready to go.
All right. Well, green beans go and go.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to become a member of our Patreon fam, all you need to do is head on over to gazetothed.com. That's our very own website. Yes, that's right. gazetothed.com and click on that donate button. Whereas for Patrick,
already.
How do you say that every where for as little as $1 a month?
There you go. You just got to rearrange those tiles into the right sentence structure.
Okay. Where for as little as $1 a month, you too can become a member of our Patreon family, which gets you access to exclusive giveaways. And put a pin in that. Speaking of Patreon giveaways, am I right, Patrick?
You are right. Put a large pin in that giveaway.
We'll be coming back to that in 1 second. So you have access to giveaways and you have access to our exclusive Patreon-only episodes, which are called Gaze to the D, Raw and Uncut.
Raw and uncut.
I love that little trill you gave that.
It was trilling, wouldn't you say?
Super trilling, yes. Oh, you know what, Patrick? There's one thing I actually forgot to mention.
Oopsie.
Oopsie daisies. And that's if you decide to become a member at the $25 level per month or above, then after your second month of membership, you get some merch sent your way as a thank you.
That's right, Adam. We have tiers, and at the minimum $25 a month tier, you get a little prize for being a Patreon member.
And then every level above that, it's like more merch is thrown your way at the second month.
Absolutely. You'll be dodging merch. You'll be swimming in Gaze to the D merch.
And if you join at the $100 level, you get a puppy.
You get a picture of a puppy.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't send a live puppy in the mail. We'll send you a picture of a puppy.
Yeah, not a live puppy. We won't send you a live one, but it'll be a puppy.
I like to underpromise and overdeliver, Patrick.
That bodes well for all of our listeners.
So there you have it. Just a fun little way that you can help support the podcast and get a little merch should you join at a certain level. But any level you join, again, you're getting access to those great episodes of Raw and Uncut, and you're getting access to our fantastic Patreon-only giveaways, which, Patrick, take it away.
We have a giveaway to talk about today. And fun fact, our Patreon members had to do nothing, absolutely nothing, other than be a Patreon member to be entered into this giveaway.
That's a lot.
But they didn't know this one was coming, although we did tease it last week. Oh, I'm a mess today.
Regardless, we're here.
We are here, just like the HBO show. We are here. So this week, Adam, we are giving away a Gaze to the D Halloween shirt. We have two different options, so our winner can choose one of two options. One is a Gaze to the D Halloween logo with a Jack Skellington motif, sort of a Nightmare Before Christmas homage, if you will.
Homage, yes.
Homage goodness. And the other one, is a Headless Horseman t-shirt that says, "How's your head?"
I don't get it.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense.
But great that that's an option, because today's feature segment, come on, we're talking about The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
It's so fitting. It's so fitting. So, Adam, would you like to announce our Patreon winner, or would you like me to do it?
You know what? You should do it. You should have this moment. I want you to shine, Patrick.
It's my only opportunity. I don't get very many of them. Adam, would you like to provide a drum roll?
I gave you the moment, and this is how you repay me. You repay me by requesting a drum roll from me.
Listen, that feels like a hard pass. That's fine. That's fine.
No, you know what? I am going to do it.
All right.
If quarantine has taught me anything, it's that I need to expand my horizons. And one way I can do that is by giving you a solid drum roll.
Fair. That's fair enough. Thank you so much for your gifts. Take it away, Adam, with the drum roll. Wow, that was like a motorcycle that ended with a cymbal crash. I really enjoyed that.
It's for all our listeners who have Harleys. There's a lot of our listeners who have motorcycles, and in particular, Harleys.
That's right. 95% of our listeners are Harley enthusiasts. So, Adam, thank you for the drum roll. And our winner is Kathy. Kathy, whether you want it or not, are going to get a Gays Do the D t-shirt.
She's going to ask for a cash option.
There is no cash option. You can choose a photo of a puppy instead, in which case, happy to oblige. That costs us nothing at all.
But once again, we cannot promise that the photo will arrive alive or dead. We don't know.
The photo itself might be alive, which is witchcraft, really. That's witchcraft, Adam.
It's witchcraft.
Thank you for that. Kathy, congratulations, and thank you so much for being a Patreon member. Thank you to all of our Patreon members.
Thank you to every single one of you. And hey, you know what? There's a Patreon-only episode coming your way.
That's right. Everyone's getting a quote-unquote gift. I'm putting quotes around that word.
It's going to be an incredible episode. I can promise you that.
Again, you are not under-promising. You are over-promising and under-delivering.
It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
Excellent. Excellent. So watch out for that coming up this week, a brand new episode of Gays Do the D, raw and uncut.
Something else you should watch out for.
What's that?
News coming your way right now.
Whoosh. Is that the sound of our news whoosh? Whoosh.
That's the internal story transition sound, Patrick. But the actual sound to the transition to the news is dun, 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 dun.
I don't listen to these episodes. It's very clear. Let's just get into the news, Adam.
The Walt Disney Company has announced a broad structural reorganization of its media and entertainment businesses in a move to ramp up and streamline its direct-to-consumer strategy. The move comes just under a year after the launch of Disney Plus, which has since surpassed the 60 million subscriber mark. According to an October 12th Variety article, the reorganization involves the creation of the new Media and Entertainment Distribution Group, which will oversee all content, monetization, and streaming operations. Kareem Daniel, most recently president of Consumer Products, Games, and Publishing at Disney, will lead the unit. Daniel, who has been at Disney for 14 years, has a history of leadership roles across the company. Outside of Consumer Products, Games, and Publishing, he has also spent time in studio distribution and Walt Disney Imagineering. Prior to his most recent role, Daniel served as president of Walt Disney Imagineering Operations, Production Creation, Publishing, and Games. There, he oversaw the transformation of IP into parks and resorts properties such as Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, as well as Toy Story Land at Disney World and Shanghai Disneyland. Under the new structure, the studios will continue to develop and produce originals for Disney's streaming services, which include Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, and legacy platforms. Distribution and commercialization will now be centralized under the Media and Entertainment Distribution Group. In a statement, Disney CEO Bob Chapek noted, quote, "Managing content creation distinct from distribution will allow us to be more effective and nimble in making the content consumers want most delivered in the way they prefer to consume it. Our creative teams will concentrate on what they do best, making world-class, franchise-based content, while our newly centralized global distribution team will focus on delivering and monetizing that content in the most optimal way across all platforms, including Disney+, Hulu, ESPN+, and the coming Star International streaming service, end quote. We expect more details on Disney's direct-to-consumer strategies on its virtually held Investor Day on December 10th. In the meantime, Patrick, another indication of how quickly the pandemic is changing Hollywood's media landscape, with more power being shifted into direct-to-consumer endeavors.
This is a smart pivot. I feel like this is going to just help them, as the whole article stated, streamline what they're already doing well.
Yeah, and Disney's not dumb, right? I mean, they know where the money's coming from right now, and the money right now is honestly coming from Disney+.
I have to say, I was thinking about this earlier this week. Take a grain of salt with what I'm saying here, but it was the perfect time for them to launch Disney+. They could not have foreseen what was about to happen around the world, obviously, but it is beneficial to them right now that they have this option because they have a captive audience, right?
Couldn't they foresee it, Patrick?
Who knows? Who can say? Maybe they did.
Let's go full QAnon here. Disney caused the pandemic.
DAnon. As Florida lifts all COVID-19 restrictions because apparently the pandemic does not exist there, more than 16,000 students are heading back to the classroom. As many of our Tweedledees are aware, now more than ever before, resources are needed to support schools, teachers, and students who find themselves in uncharted and underfunded situations. For the past 20 years, Disney World has been supporting Florida public schools by partnering with A Gift for Teaching, a nonprofit that supplies free resources to public schools. This year, the nonprofit had to close its warehouse and instead set up a curbside pickup. In addition to the standard school supplies, Disney donated thousands of reusable bags to help the nonprofit with curbside pickup efforts. There was also a unique need this year to provide face masks and lanyards to clip your masks to, as well as water bottles due to the safety hazard of public water fountains. Disney stepped up and provided all of those unique items in addition to thousands of backpacks to be distributed to students. If you would like to learn more about A Gift for Teaching or to donate supplies or money, head over to agiftforteaching.org. On a side note, Adam, we should recognize that all of the teachers out there deserve a huge thank you and bless you for all of the work that you're doing, whether it be in person or virtual. You are making a difference, and I hope someday you'll be valued and compensated the way you deserve to be. You should all be millionaires based on the amount of work and the importance of the work that you're doing, especially right now.
Teachers need more money.
I mean, teachers need more money. Classrooms need more money. Education needs to be at the forefront of everyone's mind right now, and sadly, it is not. So if I had $1 million, like the Bare Naked Ladies sang once, I would give it to teachers.
So you wouldn't spend it on Kraft dinner?
I would not. I would not do that. Well, I might spend some of it on. I do love Kraft macaroni and cheese. I'll tell you what.
But you love teachers more.
Yeah. I do love teachers a little bit more than Kraft macaroni and cheese, but I do love them more.
Would it help if the teachers were covered in cheese sauce?
Listen, if I could have a dinner with a teacher over Kraft macaroni and cheese, boy, oh boy, that would be an excellent day. What a great day. What a treat.
We have so many Tweedles who are teachers, Patrick. We can make that happen.
Listen, after COVID, we're going to do a Kraft dinner with all of our teachers. What do you say?
That's your thank you.
You deserve more. You deserve so much more.
Patrick, Senator Elizabeth Warren has some questions.
I believe you mean Queen Senator Elizabeth Warren.
That is her official title. Queen Senator Elizabeth Warren has slammed Disney over decisions she says prioritized shareholders and CEO pay packages over the well-being of its workers. In a letter to the Walt Disney Company, Warren stated that Disney's made, quote, short-sighted business decisions that depleted the storied company's capital cushion. She went on to chastise Disney over, quote, showering its top executives with over-the-top compensation packages and salaries, end quote, as well as blowing through a staggering $47.9 billion on share buybacks between 2009 and 2018. Now, Patrick, full disclosure, I did not know what a share buyback was, so I did a little research. And according to CNN Business, share buybacks are a common yet controversial way for companies to reward shareholders by returning excess cash.
Yeah, it's legal, but it's not great. It's not a cute look.
Not a cute look. And Queen Senator Elizabeth Warren did not stop there, Patrick.
She sure did not.
She went on to write, quote, it appears that prior to and during the pandemic, Disney took good care of its top executives and shareholders and is now hanging its frontline workers out to dry, end quote, referring to Disney's ongoing layoffs of 28,000 cast members in the United States. CNN Business noted that Warren gave Disney credit for continuing to provide health care benefits to furloughed workers over the past 6 months. However, the senator argued that in the years prior to the crisis, Disney, quote, prioritized the enrichment of executives and shareholders, decisions that weakened Disney's financial cushion and ability to retain and pay its frontline workers amid the pandemic, end quote. For instance, the letter said Disney paid more than $338 million in total compensation to its top 20 executives in the 3 years prior to the health crisis, which I can't even wrap my brain around, Patrick. $338 million to the top 20 executives?
That number doesn't even compute with me. It is so unattainable that it doesn't even make sense.
Oh, brother.
Yeah. You said it best. That's for sure.
In a statement, Disney said Senator Warren's letter contains a number of unspecified inaccuracies. Here comes the statement, Patrick. Quote, we've unequivocally demonstrated our ability to operate responsibly with strict health and safety protocols in place at all of our theme parks worldwide, with the exception of Disneyland Resort in California, end quote. The company added that California, quote, has prevented us from reopening, even though we have reached agreements with unions representing the majority of our cast members that would get them back to work, end quote. Queen Senator Elizabeth Warren's letter concluded, Patrick, with a series of very specific follow-up questions, and she requested a response by October 27th, 2020. It feels a bit like mom and dad are fighting.
Mom and dad are fighting, but mom is not to be messed with and far more intelligent than dad in this situation.
It's interesting that you assigned the role of mom to Queen Senator Elizabeth Warren when she is clearly the dad.
Why is she the dad?
Because she's my daddy.
Oh dear. Okay, fair enough.
As much as we love and support Disney, Patrick, this is not good. This is not a good look. This is a real big mess on top of a huge mess that Disney already finds itself in or on or whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately, Disney is finding itself in a you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't situation. However, the way that they are currently, or at least with this specific back and forth with Senator Warren, they are not handling it well. They are not representing positive intent, it seems.
And for executives who seemingly kind of push forward the values that Disney instills in its cast members about being a part of a family, this seems very, very inappropriate to be reinstating executives' salaries and payments at a time when they're laying off cast members.
Exactly. Listen, large companies exist. It's how you handle the finances within a large company that bristles my back a little bit. And Disney is not exempt from that, right? They are not establishing great equity when it comes to payment, and that needs to be remedied, in my opinion.
It's times like these, Patrick, when I feel so grateful that we are not as successful as Disney.
Yet. We are not as successful yet. The 2020 Taste of Epcot International Food and Wine Festival is finally serving its last course. It began this year on July 15th with no official end date. We now know that the festival will end on November 22nd. And on November 27th, a mini version of the International Festival of the Holidays will begin in the World Showcase with a few samplings or ghosts of festivals past. Again, no end date for the festival has been listed, so we could be celebrating the holidays for the next 6 to 10 months, Adam.
What else are we going to do?
That was so well put. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, dear. Moving on, for any annual pass holders doing some holiday shopping in Epcot, be sure to check out the brand new annual pass holder pop-up shop in the Germany Pavilion. Now, through November 11th, annual pass holders will have access to this unique shopping experience. To enter the shop, you must provide your ID and pass holder card. Due to the limited space within the shop, a virtual line has been put in place so you can be notified when it's your time to shop. Within the store, guests will have access to new annual pass exclusive items like pass holder magnet branded phone cases and t-shirts. Guests will also be able to grab deeply discounted items from around the World Showcase, including merchandise from past World Showcase festivals, sometimes at 50% off the original price. And now, through the end of October, annual pass holders are given a 30% discount on Disney merchandise, both online and on property, which can be added to the already discounted items within the shop. So, the $20 flower and garden watering can mug is now only $7 for pass holders. The new pop-up shop is part of Disney's VI Pass Holder initiative to try to include additional and unique experiences for annual pass holders.
I'm no economist, Patrick.
Okay, fair.
But it seems like you're losing money if, as an annual pass holder, you don't go down right now to shop the shop.
Yeah, you can't really afford not to purchase those items at such a discounted rate.
What would you buy for me?
There's a cute Minnie Mouse dress from the France Pavilion that I think would look fetching on you.
I agree. That would look fetching on me.
Absolutely. You are wearing a polka dot t-shirt right now, so it only makes sense.
Well, you know me in polka dots, Patrick.
You've got a spotty sense of humor?
I've got a spotty sense of... Wait a minute. That's not a compliment.
Wait a minute. Let's knock that one in there. Adam.
Patrick Poltergeist.
Ooh, it is autumn in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
I like that you went with autumn instead of fall. Autumn is so much more classy.
It is a lot more classy. Do you know how I can tell it is autumn in Minneapolis, Minnesota?
Allergies.
Allergies, but also it snowed yesterday.
Oh, wasn't that just a slap in the balls?
It is. It is a slap in the tennis balls. It snowed yesterday, and that is how we know here in Minnesota that it is autumn.
And this is the time of the episode, or really in any conversation, where you bring up the great Halloween blizzard of 1991.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. It was a storied blizzard. For those of you who have never experienced a blizzard, it was a blizzard to end all blizzards. I believe it was like 40 inches of snow over the course of a day.
Yeah, it was well over my head, for sure.
Still would be, right, Patrick?
Still would be. I would be lost at sea in that snow, for sure.
I'd come find you. I'd dig you out.
Oh, thank you. That's true friendship, Adam. That is true friendship. Well, Adam, another reason we know that it is autumn in Minneapolis, Minnesota is all of the pumpkins around us. People are carving pumpkins for Halloween.
It is pumpkin-inny out there.
Uh-oh, it's a pumpkin extravaganza. I just bought 2 of them yesterday at the grocery store.
I have yet to purchase my pumpkins, but I gotta say, some of the hybrids they're coming up with, where like they're genetically making them more disgusting and ugly looking, I don't like it. It makes me feel like I have a skin rash.
Oh dear, I didn't know they were doing that. Is that a thing for real?
There's pumpkins now that are extra bubbly or have welts on them. It's disturbing.
And they're genetically making that happen?
I can't back that up.
Oh, okay. Or they're just selling the ugly ones and they're popular.
Well, they're very consistent, so I'm going to lean into genetics on that one.
Fascinating. That is a spooky story, Adam. Speaking of spooky stories, oh, so good at these segues. We are doing a take 2 of the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which includes one of our very favorite shorts, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
That's right, Patrick. We've been wanting to do this for a while, but you have to wait until the right time of year. And this is the moment. This is the time. This is the very second when we say, hey, Mr. Toad and Ichabod, let's do this.
Oh boy, that was as spooky as The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. That was very spooky. But yes, it is the time. The moons have aligned. The planets and the moons, we have more than one moon apparently, have aligned. And here we are, a take 2 episode of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. What a treat. I love this film so much.
Was this a film you grew up with? Did you watch both segments as a kid?
Absolutely. I think we watched it every year, if not multiple times a year. And I'm also a big fan of The Wind in the Willows, the book, as well. I still have my hardcover copy of it.
Signed by Kenneth Grahame.
Signed by Kenneth Grahame, who was actually just me practicing my handwriting.
From a young age, Patrick, your cursive was on point.
Thank you so much. That is a true compliment, my friend. What about you? Was this on repeat in your home?
The Legend of Sleepy Hollow portion definitely was, and I can't remember what it was attached to, but it was kind of a short before a feature film or a longer feature. I just can't remember what it was. But the Wind in the Willows segment, I did not grow up with. I have seen it since as an adult a couple of times, but it was not something that was a part of my childhood.
Yeah, it's true. This package of a film has an interesting history and an interesting legacy beyond, because after it was released as a packaged film, they sort of split the two movies up into different pairings here and there for The Wonderful World of Disney or for Halloween specials or what have you.
Yeah, so I think my association with The Legend of Sleepy Hollow was somehow attached to, like what you said, some kind of Disney special or a longer feature film that had kind of a spooky element to it.
Fair enough. So what do you say before we start talking about each film and the design team behind them, we just give a brief history of how this movie came to be?
You know I'd love to do that. Why are you even asking?
That's fair. We're just going to jump right into it, Adam. So The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad was released in 1949, and as we said, it consists of 2 short animated films, The Wind in the Willows, based on the novel by British author Kenneth Grahame, who also wrote The Reluctant Dragon.
I did not know that until I was doing research for that. Isn't that the most adorable thing you've ever read in your entire life?
I love it. The Reluctant Dragon is one of my favorite stories, and I totally forgot that he's responsible for both of these.
And both contain LGBTQ icons.
Pretty much, actually. Pretty much. So the second short in this film is Ichabod Crane, or The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, based on the short story by Washington Irving, who also wrote the short story Rip Van Winkle.
Fun fact, he also wrote Rap Van Winkle, which was a hip-hop version of Rip Van Winkle.
Nope. Not a fact. Not a fact, Adam.
I read that somewhere.
Okay. So this was the last of Disney's packaged films in the 1940s, following movies like Saludos Amigos, The Three Caballeros, and Melody Time, among a few others, and wouldn't be until 1977 that they would follow that packaged style again with The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Quite a break there they took from the packaged films.
Quite a break in time, and ironically, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh replaced Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in Walt Disney World.
Now that goes back to a conspiracy theory, and we are back to DAnon, folks.
DAnon is all over this one.
It makes sense, though, right? Because the reason they were doing these kind of packaged films was they didn't really have the resources to put together full-fledged films during World War II. And then they were trying to come up with concepts for feature-length films that never really took off. And so they were like, let's just cram these 2 ideas together into one film.
That's kind of exactly what they did. So in 1941, after Bambi was finished, they started work on The Wind in the Willows. It was originally supposed to be a feature-length animated movie, but Disney himself, Walt Disney, wasn't super on board with it. And during 1941, we also get the Disney animator strike, which we could do a whole episode about. But in short, at the end of this strike, finances obviously were very tight at Disney, and the Bank of America issued an ultimatum to Disney that they could have this lump sum of money, but only if they finished all of the feature-length films that were currently in production, which were Dumbo, Bambi, and The Wind in the Willows. So Disney took a final look at The Wind in the Willows, and he said it wasn't nearly where it needed to be when it came to animation standards at the time. So he shelved it for a while, and they didn't start working on it again until 1946. But when they took it off the shelf, they made a decision that it had to be a short. It just wasn't enough content to be a full-length animated feature. So they paired it with two other shorts called The Legend of Happy Valley and The Gremlins, which was written by Roald Dahl. And the package would be called Three Fabulous Characters. However, The Gremlins didn't pan out. They couldn't make it work. It was cut. So they renamed that film Two Fabulous Characters, which is hysterical to me. And then finally, The Legend of Happy Valley was cut. That wasn't working either in relation to The Wind in the Willows, but they paired it with another short called Bongo, which was released as Fun and Fancy Free in 1947. So when all of this is happening, Adam, this is a crazy story. They were also starting to work on The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And Disney realized that that one was also not enough content to be a full feature film. So he takes both of these orphan films and smashes them together, like you said, to be one packaged film, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Dear listeners, there's been so many occasions on this podcast where we've talked about Disney, the Walt Disney Company, being in trouble post-World War II and how Cinderella saved them. Now you know why they were in trouble. There was a lot going on and a lot of projects that just were not taking off.
Yeah, sort of after Snow White, they had the problem of too many ideas, wouldn't you think?
Too many ideas and that pesky World War II.
That pesky World War II. Luckily, they had Walt Disney, who was able to see what was going to work and what wasn't going to work. And he had enough risk to knowledge ratio that he somehow got them out of this financial crisis.
And I got to say, the final concept of smashing these two stories together with the interstitial of introducing each as kind of a heralded work in both British and American literature, it works for me.
I agree. Though the two stories have absolutely nothing to do with each other, and they weren't even set in the same time frame necessarily, they both somehow work really well in tandem with each other. I don't know how it works. It just does for some reason.
It was so crazy, it just worked out.
There you go. It must be a case of that.
Well, let's talk about the directors and the writers and the creative team behind the films, Patrick, and then we'll kind of dive into each individual story.
I like it. I like it.
So the directors for the two pieces were James Algar, Clyde Geronimi, and Jack Kinney. James Algar directed The Wind in the Willows short, and he was known for directing a number, and I just mean, when I say a number, I don't mean a number. I mean so many of the true life nature documentary films for Disney. He was also a co-director for Bambi, and he was an uncredited director for the Sorcerer's Apprentice sequence in Fantasia. Now, this Clyde Geronimi character, Patrick, he directed the Legend of Sleepy Hollow short. He previously directed a number of classic shorts for Disney. He also co-directed just a couple of whatever films for Disney, like Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, and 101 Dalmatians. No big whoop.
No big deal.
And lastly, we have Jack Kinney, who was brought on board to co-direct The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. He also directed a number of shorts for Disney, including many of the goofy how-to shorts. You know them, you love them. Patrick and I, we also just adore those shorts. He was also a co-director on, again, just a list of failures for Disney, like Pinocchio, Dumbo, Make Mine Music, The Three Caballeros, Fun and Fancy Free, and he was an uncredited co-director for Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan.
Just to name a few, Adam, just to name a few. And for those who remember the animated cartoon series Popeye the Sailor, he was the director for those as well.
I watched many of those classic Popeye cartoons as a tyke.
Baby Adam the Sailor Man.
That's what I was. I was a baby sailor man. Moving on to the writing team behind these two shorts, we have a bunch of dudes.
A team of dudes.
A team of dudes got together and said, we got this. Among them are Erdman Penner, Winston Hibbler, Joe Rinaldi, Ted Sears, Homer Brightman, and Harry Reeves. And these guys were prolific contributors to Disney canon. And while each of them didn't work specifically on each of these movies, collectively, their writing credits include Pinocchio, Dumbo, Fantasia, The Reluctant Dragon, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, and Sleeping Beauty.
I mean, the list goes on from there. These guys were kind of a writer's room of writers for Disney. They all didn't individually write any of these movies, but they wrote them collectively. It was sort of a collective time for Disney's history when it came to writing a movie.
A hive mind for Disney.
A hive mind for Disney, indeed.
I wonder what the snacks were like while they were working on these films.
Mostly Cool Ranch Doritos, probably.
Probably, yeah.
And cigarettes.
That's famously known as the late 40s diet. And I don't mean late 40s as an age, I mean the late 1940s.
That's right.
Was all about Cool Ranch Doritos and cigarettes.
That's right. A little known fact.
Now that we've cleared that up, let's move on to Patrick, The Wind in the Willows.
Let's move on. Indeed. So as you said, Adam, The Wind in the Willows was directed by James Algar, and it was narrated by Basil Rathbone. Basil Rathbone was in roughly 8 million films, mostly British films in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. He was Sir Guy of Gisborne in 1938's The Adventures of Robin Hood. He was Sherlock Holmes in 1942's Sherlock Holmes and the Voice of Terror. And Adam, who could forget his portrayal of Reginald Ripper in 1966's The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini?
I certainly couldn't forget it.
No, no one can. But Basil Rathbone was a pretty big star, specifically in the UK during his time, and he was brought on to sort of bring a mass appeal. He and Bing Crosby, being the other narrator, were both brought on to sort of bring in the adults to this movie, right?
That's right. They anchored the stories. They were the voices that everyone knew, assuring them that everything was going to be great and that they were going to love these shorts.
Exactly. So the story itself is set in London in the early 1900s, and it features a group of animal friends, Mole, Rat, and Angus McBadger, who are basically in charge of saving the lead character of our film, J. Thaddeus Toad, from squandering all of his money away. He owns this property called Toad Hall, and he's known for his addiction to fads. Adam, as are you. As are you.
Listen, we all have manias we deal with on a regular basis. And yeah. Am I the toad of our relationship? Yeah, I'm the toad.
That's a fair assessment. But his spending and his addiction to fads has brought him basically to the brink of bankruptcy. So Mr. Toad is also known for riding through town and destroying things along with his horse and carriage. And his horse, by the way, is named Cyril Proudbottom. Adam, Cyril Proudbottom, which is, I think, what I'm going to be known as from now on.
You've been known to peacock on more than one occasion and just kind of jut out that booty.
Patrick Proudbottom. But Cyril Proudbottom is played by the delightful J. Pat O'Malley, who was a huge TV actor back in the day. He was on shows like Maude, Soap, Three's Company, and a million others. And for Disney, he did voice work for The Jungle Book as Colonel Hathi, the elephant. He was also Colonel and Jasper in 101 Dalmatians. And in Alice in Wonderland, he played the Walrus and the Carpenter.
And Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Oh, he did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, they voiced the Walrus and the Carpenter, so he was also Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Oh, sure. That whole section, he was the voice of that whole section in Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, you can hear it when he's chatting up. He's obviously younger when this film was made, but when Cyril is chatting up Mole and Rat when they first meet, you're like, oh, yeah, you're totally Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
He's got a great voice, and Cyril Proudbottom is such a funny character. I love him dearly. So since we're talking about voice work, let's go through this ragtag group of friends. Mole is played by Colin Campbell, who was more of a TV actor, also appearing in The Adventures of Superman, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, the Jack Benny program, The Twilight Zone, and he has an uncredited role as a bank vault employee in Mary Poppins.
So interesting. He was such like a background actor, almost uncredited in so many roles. And yet here he is as a mole.
The delightful mole, who is such a lovely character in this movie. Doesn't speak a lot, but he is a wonderful, wonderful character.
He's a sweetheart, right?
He's a sweetheart of the group, for sure. Which brings us to Rat, who's played by Claude Allister, a British actor mostly known for the role of Algie Longworth in Bulldog Drummond and Bulldog Drummond at Bay. And I know him specifically as Sir Giles in The Reluctant Dragon.
It's all connected, Patrick. Dianon, he was Sir Giles. Kenneth Grahame wrote The Reluctant Dragon. Kenneth Grahame wrote Wind in the Willows. It's all connected.
The strings are all attaching themselves on the back wall of my Dianon wall. I'll figure this mystery out yet. And then, of course, the delightful Angus McBadger is played by Campbell Grant, who, interestingly, was actually more of a writer and an animator for Disney. He was the story developer for Night on Bald Mountain in Fantasia, and he was an animator and character designer for Pinocchio and for Snow White. And I believe this was his only credited voice work.
Kind of shows. A little bit kind of shows.
It's not the best Scottish accent in the entire world, but it's serviceable.
It gets the job done.
It does. It gets the job done. So moving on, we have Mr. Toad, who is played by Eric Blore, who was in, again, 8 million movies from the 1920s to the 1950s, including The Great Gatsby, The Gay Divorcee, Swing Time, Sullivan's Travels, and Top Hat. He was a huge name, and he does such a wonderful job as Mr. Toad, I think.
Ugh, I could not agree more. Patrick, watching it this go around, I totally fell in love with Mr. Toad.
Mr. Toad is a great character. He's so funny. He's reckless but endearing at the same time. I really love him.
And the way the animators really convey his personality, it's fantastic. Like, you totally get a sense of who Toad is by the way he moves, by the way he talks. There's just something so charming about his little kind of rounded off nose, if it's even a nose, and the way his mouth moves. It's different from every other character in the story. It's so successful and so cute.
He's that friend in a group of friends who needs an intervention, maybe, but you love him. You love him no matter what he does. You can't help but love him, but you also need to help him stay alive, basically.
That's a great way of putting it, yeah.
I feel like I'm maybe that friend in most group of friends. So, back to our story. So Rat and Mole try to track down Toad and get him to stop his reckless riding, and of course, at this point in the movie, Toad sees a motor car for the very first time, and he instantly becomes obsessed. He's taken over by motor mania. Adam, you have motor mania, don't you?
I'm on medication for it now, but yes, I say I live with it, Patrick.
Thank you for being so brave. Thank you for your bravery. So Rat and Mole see the motor mania come over Toad, and they put him under house arrest. But of course, Toad escapes, and he's immediately arrested for car theft, and he represents himself in court with Proudbottom as his witness, who claims that the Weasels actually stole this car, and he offers to trade Toad Hall for the car. And I should note here, by the way, one of my very favorite vocal performances in this movie is the prosecutor, who's played by John McLeish. And you'll recognize, if you go back and listen to almost all of the old Disney shorts, specifically the Goofy shorts, that he was the narrator for all of those short films.
That's right. How to ski, how to blah, blah, blah. It's all John.
Yeah, if you see a short that has a narrator in Disney's history, it's very likely that John McLeish is the narrator. And he does such a wonderful job as a prosecutor. It's a hilarious yet devious character.
Yeah, it's a really successful character for being such a small part of a very small story to begin with. He really stands out.
Exactly. So another witness is brought into the courtroom, Mr. Winky, the bartender, interestingly played by Oliver Wallace, who is actually known as a composer for Disney. In fact, he composed the score for this movie, as well as Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Old Yeller, and The Incredible Journey. I don't know how he got this part, but for some reason, they needed somebody to play Mr. Winky, and Oliver Wallace was on board to do it.
I think that's exactly how it happened. I think they were like, oh, we forgot to cast Mr. Winky. Oliver, get in here.
Get in here, Oliver. We need ya. Mr. Winky lies under oath and says that Toad is actually the one who stole the car and tried to sell it to him, and Toad is found guilty and sentenced to 20 years in prison.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. On Christmas Eve, Mr. Toad gets a visit from his grandmother, but it's not his grandmother, Adam. It is Proudbottom the horse dressed up as a grandmother.
Fooling the guards and fooling Toad for a moment, but yeah, it's Cyril.
Listen, once again, drag saves the day. Am I right?
That's a great point. How often are we saved by drag?
daily in my life, that's for sure. So, Proud Bottom helps Toad escape with his ball and chain still locked to his foot. Meanwhile, Rat and Mole and Badger all discover that the bartender is actually the leader of the Weasels, Adam. Shocking.
Who knew?
Who could have seen it coming? And they have indeed taken over Toad Hall. So, Rat, Mole, and Badger all decide to steal the deed from the Weasels. Chaos and hijinks ensue. They do get the deed back and prove Toad's innocence. And Mr. Winky, the bartender, and the Weasels are all put in jail. And at the end of the film, it seems that Mr. Toad is reformed, Adam. He's on the mend until they discover his new obsession in airplanes.
That's right. He has plane mania.
Uh-oh, plane mania. And that, in a nutshell, is The Wind in the Willows.
I love it. Can we take a second to talk about the Merrily song?
We can indeed.
I adore the Merrily song, and I wasn't really even aware of it until I took my first trip to Disneyland. I mean, Patrick, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is such a treasure and such a classic Disney attraction, and the Merrily song is featured in the attraction itself, and that's when I first kind of keyed into it, and I'm like, this song, Patrick, is it.
It's a little bit of an earworm, isn't it?
It certainly is. And it's so charming. And the way that Eric Blore and Pat O'Malley perform it, it really is just a great kind of Disney classic. It was composed by Frank Churchill and Charles Walcott. And the lyrics were by Larry Morey and Ray Gilbert. I'm not familiar with these gentlemen at all, but I do truly love the Merrily song. And it's such a great moment in the short.
It's lovely. It's a little reminiscent of something you might find in Alice in Wonderland, which would come out a little bit later.
Totally, yeah.
So here's my question for you, Adam. Having rewatched The Wind in the Willows, does it track with the ride, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride?
No, yes. I mean, yes, it does, because what the ride does is it takes elements from the movie, not in any particular order, but just kind of slams them in there and gives you a truly manic Toad experience. Like, you are Toad in the ride, right? So you are experiencing mania, and there's no connection between any of the story elements, but they're peppered in there.
They are peppered in there. If you went on the ride and didn't know the movie at all, you may not have any idea what's going on, and you inexplicably find yourself in hell at the end of the ride, which does not happen in the movie, I must admit.
It doesn't, no. But I like to think that the Imagineers were so exhausted by the time Disneyland was ready to open. They were like, how do we end this thing? Let's send people to hell.
Let's just put them right in hell. Makes sense to me. No, I really love this short. It's so endearing. It's fun. I see why it wouldn't work as a feature-length movie. There just isn't enough necessarily to eke out there, but it's super fun and it's charming, I would say.
Yeah, The Wind in the Willows is kind of like a collection of vignettes as opposed to like a big story. Even as cool as the Toad elements are, there's just not enough there to pull a feature out of it. But it is just such a sweet little story and a perfect use of like source material for a short film.
For sure. It's a little reminiscent of The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, where you have these characters who are going on these adventures together, but this one is a little bit more on drugs instead.
A little bit more on drugs instead. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think that's what most of the critics say. So that, as I said, is The Wind in the Willows.
Well, I love it, Patrick. Thank you for sharing all that information with us. And I got to say, Toad, I don't know. Toad may be my new favorite character. I forgot how adorable and charming Toad is.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not a plush. I guess these aren't necessarily in the mainstream right now, these characters in this movie specifically, but it's a huge part of Disneyland. I'm not sure why they aren't embracing the characters themselves more.
Another note for Disney among our many, many notes for Disney.
Take note, Disney. We need a Toad plush.
All right, Patrick, moving on to The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Boo.
Uh-oh. Bing Crosby, is that you?
It's old Bing here. I'm having a cocktail, and I'm going to tell you about The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Ooh, that was a little bit drunk, which tracks with Bing Crosby.
That's right. Bing Crosby was the narrator and really kind of the performer of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow portion of this kind of double feature in one feature. He also performs the voices of Ichabod Crane and Brom Bones and really just a number of characters in the short. And Bing Crosby, I mean, we all know Bing, Patrick, right?
We all know Bing. He looks fetching in a smoking jacket, I must admit.
Oh.
Yeah, I know that personally.
You got a little thing for Bing?
I don't, but he wears a smoking jacket well, is all I meant, specifically in White Christmas.
Got it. Speaking of White Christmas, how could we not bring up the fact that he is in the film White Christmas? He's also in the source film of White Christmas, Holiday Inn, which is very problematic. We won't talk about that. And of course, he is probably the preeminent singer of the song White Christmas by Irving Berlin.
Yes, Bing Crosby is White Christmas.
So he is our narrator and, like I said, performs a lot of the voices throughout the story. And let's talk about that very story. We're talking about a new schoolmaster coming to the town of Sleepy Hollow.
A schoolmaster with legs for days. The Naomi Smalls of schoolmasters.
That's right. He did consider a modeling career at one point, but said, no, I'm going into education. And of course, we're talking about Ichabod Crane, or as Bing refers to him, Old Icky.
Listen, there's a teacher shortage. We need more Ichabod Cranes.
Especially back then, there was a teacher shortage. Like, they would get a paper cut and then they would die of an infection.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly right.
So Ichabod Crane is coming to town, and the townsfolk are besides themselves. They cannot help it. Several of the women seem enamored with him for some reason, but who's not enamored with him from the get-go is Brom Bones and the Sleepy Hollow Boys.
Brom Bones, the original Gaston.
Gaston 1.0 for sure, yes.
I have a little crush on Brom Bones, I'm not going to lie. Brom Bones indeed.
Yeah, those forearms are doing it for me.
He needs to be added to more of those. Which Disney prince would you watch Disney Plus and chill with?
Yeah, he's pretty attractive.
Not a prince, I guess. Not a prince, but boy, oh boy, Brom Bones me.
So Brom Bones and the Sleepy Hollow Boys kind of make Ichabod the butt of their jokes, but Ichabod has the last laugh because he uses his position as a schoolmaster to work his way into the homes of the ladies in town, who in turn feed him feasts. Feasts, Patrick. He gets feasts for free.
That's right. Ichabod is known for devouring an entire turkey in one slurp.
With that thin neck, how does he do it?
He's got talent, Adam. If you can suck the meat off of a turkey bone, you're okay with me. You know what I mean?
That's a attribute you like.
Ichabod indeed. More like Sickabod, am I right?
If you're into that look, yeah.
For sure.
Moving on, one fateful day, Patrick, Ichabod happens to meet Katrina Van Tassel, and everything goes to
Poor Katrina.
Poor Katrina, who we'll call Grace Martin 2.0 from Make My Music, or Cinderella 1.0.
Or Slewfoot Sue from Pecos Bill as well. She's almost an exact replica of her.
The animators were like, we don't have the energy for Katrina. What have we already done that we can use?
That's 100% what they did.
And Ichabod is so smitten with Katrina. And Katrina, ever the opportunist, realizes she can use Ichabod in order to make Brom Bones jealous.
She knows what she's doing.
Just like Ichabod is taking advantage of the women of the village to feed him, she's like, yeah, let me use this lanky dude to lock down the burly hot guy.
Not a hero to be found in this town, I'm finding.
Patrick, what do you want them to do? Times were tough, and they were all just like struggling to survive.
It's true. Listen, I can't blame a single one of them.
Thank you. That was a brave but controversial statement.
I do what I can. I do what I can.
Yes, you do. And Patrick, everything comes to a head. As old Bing says, everything comes to a head.
Okay, all right.
The night that the Van Tassels have their fall harvest festival. I don't know what it is. They're having a party.
Yeah, it's a Halloween party, basically.
I don't see a lot of candy there, but basically. And Katrina invites Ichabod, of course, and Brom, who has had it with Ichabod, devises a plan to frighten Ichabod by telling him the story, and really all of the townspeople who are attending, the story of the Headless Horseman.
In song, no less.
In song, sung by Bing Crosby.
All right, here we are again.
And he manages to scare Ichabod so much that Ichabod is terrified to go home that evening, and on his ride home, oh dear, on his ride home, Ichabod and his horse encounter the Headless Horseman, and, spoiler alert, Ichabod is nowhere to be found the next morning.
Yeah, things don't go well for old Ichabod.
So that is the story of the legend of Sleepy Hollow. And as I said, Bing Crosby plays a lot of the roles, But there are some people who added their voice to a couple of characters and a couple of moments in the films. And boy, are they interesting people to have on this project. First up, we have Pinto Colvig, who provided the screaming and laughter and other assorted noises for Ichabod Crane and some other townspeople in the short as well. Pinto Colvig was one of the Disney legends we covered way back in episode 88. He also was the original voice of Goofy and provided Pluto's barks and various noises in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah, he kind of made that Goofy wow very, very famous, which you can hear in Ichabod's scream.
You can indeed. He gave Ichabod that special little nudge that Bing was unwilling to do.
Unwilling or unable, at least.
Bing was like, I'm not a screamer, blah, 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 blah.
That's not what I heard, Bing. That's not what I heard.
Also added to the voice cast was Clarence Nash, who provided the sounds for Ichabod's horse. Clarence Nash originated the voice of Donald Duck and voiced him from 1934 to 1984. So two Disney greats coming together and kind of plussing this short by adding their own special little touches, Pinto to Ichabod and Clarence Nash to Ichabod's horse.
I feel like at this time, all of those Disney legends were just sitting around waiting for something to do, and they just sort of were like, hey, you over there, I need you to be a horse real quick.
Yeah, and in between takes, they'd be like, wouldn't it be nice someday if we were recognized as legends?
And then they all took a drink of the martini and laughed it off.
Their third martini.
It's never their first. They just continue the party.
Also continuing the party were Judd Conlin's Rhythmares.
Is that a group of percussionist horses? The Rhythmares.
Could be. Could very well be. But the Rhythmares were actually a vocal group who had a long association with Bing Crosby, and they were actually used in both shorts, both in The Wind in the Willows and in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. They also appeared in 1948's So Dear to My Heart for Disney, and Judd Conlin, who kind of headed up the group, was the vocal arranger for Bambi, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Babes in Toyland.
I still like to believe that they were horse drummers, the Rhythmares.
You can believe whatever you want.
Thank you.
As I said, they provide the voices for several of the townspeople, especially when they're singing. So when Brom Bones is singing about the Headless Horseman and you hear, and a hippity hop, he's coming to cut off your head, or whatever they sing, that's them.
Yeah, they had that very specific and unique sort of a 5-part harmony sound to them.
So tight, that harmony.
I actually really love those. I can just picture them standing around a piano during Christmas and doing some carols. They very likely were featured in White Christmas at some point.
Could have been. As I said, they had a long association with Bing Crosby. He loved the Rhythmares.
Just 6 or 7 more times is what we need for your Bing Crosby impression.
Ba-ba-ba-boom, Patrick.
All right. That was not a request. It was more of a joke, but here we are.
Speaking of Bing Crosby and the Rhythmares, let's talk about some of the songs in this section of the film. We have Ichabod Crane, the song Katrina, and as I mentioned, the song that Brom Bones sings, Headless Horseman. The songs were composed by Don Ray and Gene DePaul.
Now, my question here is, were they intending this to be a musical section, or did they get Bing Crosby and think to themselves, well, we have to have music now?
That's a really interesting question, Patrick, because Bing at this time would have been such a get for Disney and such a huge sell and kind of a boost for this film. So yeah, maybe originally they weren't intending for the Legend of Sleepy Hollow section to have musical numbers in it, but then Bing came on board and he was like, I have demands.
There's the 8th one. Regardless of how it happened, they are really fun songs. I enjoyed them, specifically the song about the Headless Horseman. It's one of Disney's more sinister songs.
Yeah, and it's so fun to watch Ichabod's reactions to what Brom is singing about in that section. A fun fact about the Sleepy Hollow section, Patrick, is that Ichabod was actually given some of Bing Crosby's attributes. So, for instance, Ichabod's big ears were included to kind of give reference to Bing Crosby's larger ears.
Well, isn't that adorable?
So adorable. And while we don't have an attraction like we do Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in a Disney park, there are several instances where the Legend of Sleepy Hollow is brought into the parks. We have Ichabod and the Headless Horseman appearing before the Halloween parades in Disneyland and Walt Disney World. And in Walt Disney World, we have the Sleepy Hollow quick service in the Magic Kingdom. And The Legend of Sleepy Hollow has also been related to events at Fort Wilderness Lodge and campgrounds during the Halloween season. So while there's not one big attraction based on this short, there are several instances where The Legend of Sleepy Hollow has made its way into the parks and resorts.
That's right. And be sure to visit the Sleepy Hollow quick service, because that's where you're going to find that delicious waffle, Nutella, and fruit situation. And it's so good, you must have it.
Delicious. There's also the sweet and spicy chicken waffle sandwich. And Sleepy Hollow frequently has, during the Halloween and Christmas seasons, some kind of seasonal dessert based on waffles and ice cream.
Yeah, it's a delicious little spot within the Magic Kingdom.
So, Patrick, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, how you feel about it?
I love it. It's a classic. It's a classic in my mind. It has all of my favorite attributes of a classic Disney film. It's got comedy. It's got a little bit of adventure. It's got really lovely, sweet music. And it's got delightful characters as well.
The characters are so memorable. The musical numbers are fantastic. And it really does sell the season, so to speak. Like, you can't help but feeling Halloween when you watch The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Exactly. My one problem with the movie is the character of the shorter female that Brahm tries to set Ichabod up with is something that Disney did a lot of. They introduced a shorter character who's a rounder character and made them sort of stupid or undesirable. And in this day and age, it did not sit well with me, that character.
Yeah, you see a lot of that, these like caricatures of people who are overweight or not the brightest. And that was just something that not only Disney did, but a lot of animation studios did at the time. And it has not aged well at all.
No, it hasn't aged well. And to be clear, it wasn't okay at the time and it's not okay now. So you sort of have to take that into account. But overall, I really like this film.
It's a great one. And as I said earlier, it, for some reason, pairs well with The Wind in the Willows, making this a really great, entertaining, packaged film.
For sure. It got great critical response as well.
Yeah, it got some great notices.
The New York Times praised the film, saying that Mr. Disney, abetted by his staff such perfect narrators as Bing Crosby and Basil Rathbone, and a pair of durable literary works, has fashioned a conclave of cartoon creatures, I love that sentence, which by and large have the winsome qualities and charm of such noted creations as Mickey Mouse and Dumbo. That's some high praise.
Coming from the New York Times? Yes.
And then Life magazine had a little bit of a mixed review, but overall praised it, saying, The Wind and the Willows leaves out the poetry and most of the subtlety, but it still has enough action for the children and wit enough for everybody. It is deft and pleasant and throughout ironic and good-hearted. Although the Ichabod part of Ichabod and Mr. Toad is silly and bumbling, Mr. Toad's half is good enough to convince Disney admirers that the old master can still display the bounce and vitality he had before the war.
Wow, Life did not care for The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
They did not care for it, but they really, really loved The Wind in the Willows. And the film overall has an aggregated review of 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Not surprising. It's entertaining, but also there's just that nostalgia value to it, too.
Right. It is just quintessential classic Disney. It's right in between the earlier films like Dumbo and Snow White, and then the later films like Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan. It fits in so snugly within those two chapters in Disney's history. So overall, we're both fans of this movie. I imagine you're a fan of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow more than The Wind in the Willows. Is that accurate?
I don't know now. I was really taken with Toad watching it this time around, and I was just so charmed with The Wind in the Willows segment. I forgot how much narration is actually in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow segment. It left me wanting more character voices. And listen, I love The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's kind of a great gateway for kids to kind of get into horror a little bit. Like, it's like a little toe in the water into horror. But that Wind in the Willows segment, Patrick, it got to me. It really spoke to me. That Toad, he is a charmer.
He is a charmer indeed.
What about you? Which segment do you prefer? And did you come away with this with any new insight?
Interesting. I grew up, I think, liking The Wind in the Willows a little bit better because of the animal characters, and it was just more approachable for a kid, I think, to watch. But now, giving The Legend of Sleepy Hollow another look, though I still loved it as a kid, I think I appreciated the fact that it was mostly narration. It gave it more of a poetic vibe to it. So it was almost as though Bing Crosby was just reading the book and Disney was animating the pages in the book for us. And I appreciated that. I thought it was lovely. And it gave it more of a haunting vibe as well, because you didn't really have a voice for any of the characters, which gave them more mystery, I thought.
Yeah, it's tough to say if there is a favorite. It's just great that they're paired together and that they both have these really wonderful elements that kind of sell each segment.
Yeah, they are definitely both different, yet both lovely and fun to watch. And I have to admit, it's not Disney's best animation necessarily, but they were experimenting here and there. Like when Toad gets those famous crazed eyes, the circles. I feel like that's one of the first times you see that in Disney history, and you'll see it a lot more going forward.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention, Mary Blair worked on this, and it's so apparent. So it's like these great elements coming together. They were trying new things. They were also relying on kind of these classic animation techniques. It kind of comes together and results in this wonderful little packaged film.
And to think it almost didn't happen. Both of these films almost didn't see the light of day, but they both happened to be orphaned at the same time, which is the only reason they were thrown together.
Was it the only reason? Dianon.
Dianon indeed. Dianon indeed.
Well, we would love to hear from you. Tell us your thoughts. What you like, what you don't like. Was this a staple in your house when you were growing up? Have you just recently discovered the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad? Let us know. You can reach us on social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast.
Or leave us an email or a voice memo at info@gaysdothed.com.
Legend has it, Patrick, that Bing walked into the studio and he was like, boo, I'm only giving you one take. And he was out in 40 minutes.
That tracks. That absolutely tracks. I like that you had to get just one more impression in there, just at the last minute.
Was that my last one, or is this my last one?
This is my last episode, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Adam.
We've reached the end of this episode. We've crossed the covered bridge just in time. The Headless Horseman cannot reach us, but we have one more segment, and that is Quick D, and this is Quick D.
One last scare.
One last scare before we just shut this thing down.
A jump scare. Let's just scream at the same time randomly.
Wouldn't everyone just love that?
They would. They would.
But we'll preserve your eardrums for the time being. This week we are doing Quick D Question. It's a classic, isn't it, Patrick? It's a classic Quick D.
Classic D.
Patrick and I are going to ask each other a question we have not been privy to prior to recording, and we're going to answer it off the cuff. Patrick, I'm going to go first, so deal with that.
Dealing now. Dealing now.
Patrick, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's like an election in 2 weeks.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as it turns out, in a surprise twist, in an October surprise, Patrick, both Donald Trump and Joe Biden's running mates, that's Mike Pence and Kamala Harris, have been forced to drop out of the race. And Patrick, both parties, for some reason, even Donald Trump is turning to you to decide who his running mate is going to be. Joe Biden has called you and said, I need a new running mate. Which two Disney characters are you going to offer Donald Trump and Joe Biden as their running mates for the election?
What an important question you've asked me, Adam.
Yeah, I know.
What a truly important question.
You hold the fate of our democracy in your hands now.
It's true. It's true. I kind of don't want to give President Trump a Disney character because that would just make him likable.
There's not even a dud, like from a failed Disney movie. What about not even someone from Song of the South?
Oh, dear. Well, I mean, they're already in his cabinet, Adam. They're already there. That's what the White House is right now.
It's true. It's true.
Let's be very clear about that. I guess if I had to match up a character to Mike Pence, it's clearly Claude Frollo. I mean, just replace one with the other. You won't know. You wouldn't know.
That is so true. Like a seemingly pious, like projects faith and commitment to God, and he's just a mess in real life.
Yes, he clearly prays to the devil in his fireplace every night and sings Hellfire before he goes to bed.
He probably has one of Ivanka's scarves that he sniffs.
It sounded like you said scars for a second, but he may have a scar from Ivanka. Who can say?
I'm not going to say scar or a scarf.
That's right. So Claude Frollo, VP, makes sense to me.
Keeping America great with Claude Frollo.
And so now I have to give Joe Biden a new running mate, which breaks my heart because Kamala is my personal hero. Not a joke at all. Hashtag not a joke. Hashtag for real.
I wasn't laughing.
Who could replace Kamala Harris? Maybe Grandmother Willow from Pocahontas. She's wise. She's got a little pep in her step. She's spunky. She has all the answers, and she does great in a debate, I feel like. Grandmother Willow.
She makes Vice President Biden look young.
This is true. Their ages do match up. That's for sure. Yeah, Grandmother Willow. There we are.
So we have a Trump Frollo ticket, and we have a Biden Willow ticket.
That's right. Biden Willow 2020.
I have to applaud you. I didn't think replacing Kamala could be possible, but look what you've done. You have said, Kamala, who I absolutely adore you. I'm sorry you have to leave the ticket, but if it must happen, you must be replaced with Grandmother Willow.
This is the only accurate answer, I feel like. But let's be clear. No one can replace the delightful, the intelligent, the future queen of the world, Kamala Harris.
Well, I think Elizabeth Warren might have something to say about that.
They can be co-queens.
Co-queens. I love it.
I'd vote for that ticket in a heartbeat. Let's replace Joe Biden while we're at it. Listen, vote for Joe. Vote for Joe. Let's be clear. But let's get Harris Warren instead.
Maybe Harris Warren in 2024, right?
There you go. I'm all for it. Well, Adam, I have an equally important question for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Great. I think the world is expecting, nay, demanding that Gays Do the D put on a Zoom Halloween party. And it is up to you, because I need to take a nap, it is up to you to decide on the theme of said Zoom party. Please give the world their demands in a Gays Do the D Zoom-a-ween party.
Zoom-a-ween party hosted by Gays Do the D. I have the perfect theme. It is a theme that harkens back to our childhoods, gives us big Halloween vibes.
Okay, I like a big vibe.
And also celebrates the culinary arts, Patrick. Everyone's going to have to make them at home, but the theme for the GDTD Zoom-a-ween party is open-faced cheese whiz sandwich with potato chips crinkled on top.
Oh, if ever there was a classic.
A classic, a staple, really, of school Halloween parties, Patrick, right?
What school did you go to?
Did you not have open-faced sandwiches with just cheese whiz kind of spread on top of it, a piece of bread with cheese whiz on top, and then you take like old Dutch potato chips and you just crunch them up and you sprinkle them on top?
I sure did not. Adam, but I clearly went to the wrong school.
Is it a Wisconsin thing?
It might be a Wisconsin thing.
Tweedles, we're going to need to resolve this, because this was something that was at so many occasions in my childhood. And you know how orange Cheese Whiz is? It was perfect for a Halloween treat, a savory Halloween treat at a school Halloween party.
Savory is a stretch of a word there. I need you to walk me through the sandwich one more time, Adam. We're talking about a piece of bread.
Preferably the most bleached Wonder Bread, white bread situation you can get. Yep.
Sugar bread is what we're talking about here. And then you just cover it in Cheese Whiz, a spray can of Cheese Whiz. Is this correct?
That's right. And dealer's choice if you want to spread out that Cheese Whiz with a knife, or if you just want to leave it in the kind of a ropey, cheesy whiz goodness situation.
I take umbrage with the word ropey. there. That was a real mess. And then just for health, just for measure, we put some potato chips on top of that. Just the regular, just a potato chip, a salty potato chip.
Salty, greasy. Yep. You take them in your hands, you crunch them up, and you sprinkle it on top of the cheese whiz, and you just kind of give it a little pat those crunchy bits down into the cheese. And you know how it's like a nice little accompaniment to the cheese, that salt and grease from a store brand potato chip. Yes.
That's the real Halloween treat there, Adam. That is horrifying. That is horrifying to think about eating.
Can you imagine all of our Tweedles on Zoom taking a simultaneous bite of an open-faced cheese whiz and potato chip sandwich?
It would be the crunch heard around the world. Followed by 3 to 6 heart attacks. That will do it for this episode of Gays Do the D. Thanks for listening. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gaysdothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gays Do the D content and help us continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussion. Continue the conversation after this episode on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast. Submit your questions or show ideas to info@gaysdothed.com. Have a great week, everybody. See ya real soon.